Greetings, I'm the one called Horror Show, and welcome to Game Over, the show where I talk about games. Now, as you might have guessed from the title of my very first episode, I'll be talking about Outlander for the Sega Genesis. Now, there is a Super Nintendo version of this, but that one's not very good, and I will cover that a little bit later on in the episode. Now, when I saw this game in my local retro game shop, I thought to myself, wow, this looks Mad Max as all hell, and being Australian, that kind of means that I have to like it. And doing a little bit of research, I actually found out that there's a very good reason as to why this looks like Mad Max.
It's made by Mindscape. For those of you who aren't familiar with that name, they worked on some games, and during my research I couldn't really find good information as to what they actually made, and the few games I found that they did make were through offhand mentions, like Lego Island, Conan, Mario's Missing, and Mario's Time Machine, along with the most important one, Mad Max.
They obviously had the license at some point, so what happened? Well, they lost the license, as simple as that. Happens all the time in gaming. And in most cases, that ends up destroying the game and making it so the game doesn't get finished. But in this case, they obviously went, oh, let's finish the game. Which, hey, I gotta give props to them for that.
Now, for those of you who have played the NES game, you're probably thinking to yourself, does it play the same? Well, I've got good news for you. It doesn't. The majority of the game takes place in a car, yes, but it's like a racing game, in which case it's actually good. The car combat is much better, you see, because you have guns strapped to the front of your car and you can point your shotgun out the window and shoot people. You also get service-to-air missiles, but I'll get into that a little bit later. This part of the game is where almost all of the action takes place. You got the guys on bikes who are pests, but you just pull up beside them and blammo, they're gone. Or you could drive in front of them and slam on the brakes. Utes, or pickup trucks, are also a thing. They are tougher than the bikers naturally, they can run you off the road and kill you, but you can do the same to them and they're easier to hit with your car-mounted guns. Finally, we have the helicopters. These guys drop bombs or molotovs, it's not very clear, but they can only be hit by your service-to-air missiles. But here's the thing. I've driven through the explosions and I've taken no damage whatsoever. So these guys do nothing as far as I could find. I guess they clear the screen, but it's not really that bad. I mean, I guess that does make things worse when things get real hectic, but it's still not that bad. They don't appear often enough when things are getting hectic, and even then, I'm still able to focus on the guys who can actually kill you. There are more enemy types, just so you know, but they're in the second gameplay segment when you pull over and get out of your car. It turns into a side-scroller. Here you can jump, shoot, and punch. These parts I found to be breather levels due to them being easier and slower. The enemy types range from dude, girl with gun, guy with gun, and in certain areas, dudes on bike with chains or molotovs. They are easily taken care of. The dudes on bikes should drive past you if you crouch, but with the molotov guys, it's hard to avoid their attack due to you otherwise always crouching when you see a bike. These guys, you need to move out of the way of, so I got hit more often than not, but everyone else, swift punch to the groin. If you duck, then nothing can hit you unless they get within punching range of you, so you can stun lock them to death. But if there's more than one walking towards you, then you can shoot one of them to death and then continue pounding on the other's crotch. Although the gun guards won't get anywhere near you, so you have to chase them down and pound on their crotch. You can enter these areas if you pull up to the side of the road, or if your turn signal starts going off, you can go into one of the towns, where your points are added up and you can get to continue and password. The passwords are only given every 4 towns, with an exception that I'll get into later, but these towns are the best times to get supplies. You have limited fuel and ammo, which isn't as bad as it sounds. Almost never run out of ammo and fuel. If you do run out of fuel, you can just go into a side-scrolling segment and fight people and steal things until you get fuel and bugger off. It's not that hard. You can also pick up, along with various health and ammo items, nitros, a supercharger which only lasts for a limited amount of time, a windscreen if yours gets shot to hell, armor for your hot bod and car, a Karibo, and Geiger counter. Why do you need a Geiger counter? Well, because sometimes the food and water you pick up is contaminated and you take damage instead of healing, so you want to avoid that. I should probably use this as an opportunity to talk about what exactly the Super Nintendo version does differently. The main difference between the two is that the Super Nintendo version changes up its driving stick. In the Genesis version, it's a first-person view, with 3 buttons to use. In the Super Nintendo version, it's third-person, and you use every single button. Now, I haven't actually played the Super Nintendo version for long enough to see if that's a problem, but what little I did play, and how much I hate the crab grip, I have a feeling that the Sega version is the better version to play in the long run, and it just feels better. It just plays better, in my opinion.
So you're getting shot to hell and going the distance, but why? Well, for me it was because the music was so good that I wanted to keep going. It's music you've been listening to this entire review, so you know what I'm talking about. But, just in case you don't really like that kind of music, or you think it's okay, maybe there's something in the story for you. I'll look at the back of the box to see if there's anything for you there. There is not. Well, that's kind of disappointing. Maybe the manual has something. Just maybe. Let's see. Here we go. Yep. There's 2 pages worth of story for you right there. And right there. You really don't need that much story. Also a blurb. Like, there's... Like, I'm not all that familiar with Mega Drive games. It's not my platform of choice. Did a lot of games have this much story in the manual? Because in the ones I have, they don't. I mean, really, all of it just says is you're the Outlander, because you're the only person who's ever been able to cross the Outlands, and there's a scientist who's trying to save the world, bring the world back from devastation because of the apocalypse, and his plane got shot down over Australia, and he's being caught by baddies, and you need to fight the big boss to get him back. Now, that's me summarizing 2 pages, or 2 manual pages, so there's a lot more detail, but there's also not, because it's 2 manual pages. But at the same point, this was a licensed game that lost its license. So I was expecting much less. As in none. Because it's a licensed game. I'd expect low effort to none in the story department. But hey, they gave it a go and got out 2 pages of the manual dedicated to the story. Hey, good on them.
But the manual references a big boss, so is there one? Well, during the entire game I kind of figured that there wouldn't be, because, you know, there was no story whatsoever given in the game. As I was pulling up to the last town, I figured that maybe, just maybe, a cutscene would start playing as I got there, but I got to a normal town and there was nothing different about it, so I was kinda confused. I mean, I'd been everywhere, man. I'd been to Wreckwood, Egas Town, Blast Point, Snake Creek, Skies Hill, Dirt Gulch, Tombstone, Fisheye, Voidville, Dust Bowl, Slow, Denial, Bushtown, Wild Basin, Burgers Hole, Tortilla Flats, Grassmeres, Freetown, Wipeout, Hellburn, Rankton, Broken Ridge, Hazeltown, Toxaville, Ground Zero, Barrettville, Arizona, and Trumtown. And I figured it would end at the last one, but no, the game continued to play, so I figured it would be like an arcade where I'd keep going until I died and got the high score. But a truck appeared, and me, being the protagonist that I am, shot the hell out of it. It exploded and turned into a truck with the back door open and a turret shooting at me, so I naturally shot back and won. The game then went all side-scrolling, and I killed a few normal guys, and then what the goddamn hell is this? What? Like, okay? I was not expecting that, but sure. So I shot him a great number of times, punched him in the groin so many times I think it turned to mush, and I got my cutscene. Alrighty then.
Now, I have sung this game's praises, but it's not all good.
That Geiger counter I mentioned before disappears when you die, so even if you got a password, it's gone. And in the late stages, they don't appear again, so you have to deal with it. And when you're low on health, you can't take that risk. You're not sure if it's worth opening crates and barrels to check. What? Did I not mention that stuff you punch open can be dangerous? Well, it is, because what happens when you punch an enemy is that they die. When you punch a wooden crate, which has the same goddamn health, you take damage. Admittedly, not a lot, but when you're on a magic pixel, it's more than enough. So you have to shoot it open, but if you do, you're gonna run out of ammo when you actually need it. To make matters worse, when you get to Hellburn, you get your last password with an extra 8 towns to go through. 4 towns can get kinda hard, but 8! At the end when the game gets really hard. It wouldn't be so bad if you could get a continue, but they appear every 10,000 points starting at 11,000. And at the end of the game, my score was something like 30,000, so I got 3 continues during the entire game. Let's look at how you get points. Murder, skill, and how much stuff you have left over. And this, it just says you can get continues, but not how. Why? Wait, hold on, what's this? Riddle sheet with bullets for extra points. Hold on, what? You mean those things that are like off to the side of the road?
Now, the thing is, sure, risking extra damage and or instant death for more points is a good idea. I mean, that's just how games should work. But in this particular instance, you don't get any more points, or at least not a significant amount that I noticed. Because I have shot some of these jokers in normal gameplay and I have noticed no change in my point score whatsoever.
But either way, I had to keep restarting because I kept dying, and all those deaths were mostly because I'd run out of fuel and so I had to scavenge. And while yeah, I did say that I like these segments to an extent, the ones on the side of the road can go to hell, because the guys who toss molotovs are very hard to dodge. You can't tell what side they're going to appear from, so you have a fraction of a second to react when they appear. And if you make the wrong choice, you'll get hit. Which makes it worse because I'm playing on a Mega Drive. Which, okay, what's the problem?
I have a Sega Mega Drive, not a Sega Genesis, which, long story short, means that my game runs a little bit slow. Because of reasons. And so that means that me having trouble with these guys because I don't have enough time to react means that I was having an advantage and I still couldn't bloody do it. Which goes to show how annoying these guys are because of how you're supposed to react, or at least how it's optimal to react to the other enemies in the game.
Which gets exacerbated when you take into account the fact that there are mines, so I'd get knocked back into a mine and lose something like half my health. And I'd have to do this like 3 goddamn times because my car isn't very fuel efficient. And because it's not fuel efficient, that means low fuel alarms. So it's okay, as a guy who plays games, I can handle low health noises. But what's that? I also have a health meter. I have 2 alarms going off. Well, that's kind of annoying. But that's it, right? No, you have an alarm that goes off when you get near town. So I've often had all 3 alarms going off at the same goddamn time. This game loves its noises. Even the Geiger counter is loud to alert you that food has got so much radiation that it's hurting you because you're passing by it. How are you supposed to avoid taking damage?
But it's not all bad, because the gameplay, at the end of the day, is still really fun. So it's the controls and so it's the music. Like, I have talked about the bad, but when I was first writing this review, I couldn't remember any of the bad parts. Like, I wrote the script, I'm like, oh, I'm about halfway done. I'm going to play through again just to see if there's anything I missed. And that's when I started noticing the bad parts, because first time through, it was just a fun joyride. And the bad parts didn't stick out that much, so, which is why I'm going to give this game a 3 out of 4, a recommendation. And with that, I've been Horror Show, and this has been Game Over.